Well, hello and welcome to our coverage of the MJG Brands Hatch Winter Stage. It's the very first event on the calendar at Brands Hatch in 2013, and you can see it's something a little bit different. Chicanes in the pit lane, cars competing through the paddock, the rally stage and around the circuit as well. Here's Suze Endine from the organising club to tell us a little bit more about what goes into the event and what's going to happen today.
The event's sponsored by Mick Johnson, who's out competing on the event in his Subaru. We're really grateful, obviously, to MGJ Engineering for sponsoring the event. The event's run by Chelmsford Motor Club. We've just come third overall in the MSA JLT Club of the Year for 2012, which is really good, and we won it a few years ago as well. The club's got over 450 members, and you can see a lot of the members are out here today. They're competing, they're organisers, they're marshalling, they're getting really involved in the event, which is obviously, really good for us as a club. Obviously, there's a lot of marshals. It's very cold today. It's about 3 degrees. We've had a little bit of snow, a little bit of rain. It's been a little bit not the nicest conditions, so we're really grateful for them as well, for standing out and making the event happen.
Well, here's the stage layout then for stages 1 and 2, and it actually starts down on the Brands Hatch Rally School stage, which is very, very slippery indeed. Moving on then up for a blast through the paddock, including a jump by the scrutineering bay and out onto the circuit. Up and down the pit lane, including chicanes in both directions, and then the wrong way down Cooper Straight before heading through Graham Hill Bend up to Druids and even Paddock Hill Bend, all the wrong way. A couple of laps around the circuit before they split off to the right and head up towards the Johnny Herbert Bridge for the finish. And car 1 taking the start for the first time, Jeremy Straker and Simon May in the Darien T9. Straker has won the event here before. He won the winter stages last year. Not quite so wet and cold as it was this time round. You can see as they head down towards the first hairpin at the rally stage here just how slippery it is. Really tiptoeing around, feeling for grip. This car 2 litres, 270 horsepower, and even at these low speeds moving around, sliding, very, very tricky to control. Good job by Straker. Here's a car which should be more suited to these conditions. Car number 3 of Nigel Mummery and Fiona Scarrett. It's the Ford Focus World Rally car, called 4-wheel drive, 2-litre turbo. This car an ex-M Sport car. 4-wheel drive in these conditions, of course, should give just that little bit more traction on the exits. But you can see Nigel just struggling to get the car to turn in. He debuted it here a year ago and actually ended up in the gravel trap at Paddock Hill Bend. So it's not been a great event for him in the past. Also here at the summer stages, we had another problem. Tiptoeing his way around. The car not sounding too good either. These cars do make a growl of the anti-lag. The turbo constantly spooling up to give you immediate throttle response. But that to me isn't sounding like it's running quite on song. Paul King and Alicia Miles in the Ford Escort RS. 2.5 Millington engine with a sequential gearbox, so this isn't an old school Mark II Escort. This is very much of the modern specification, and Paul King here gives us a good idea from on board of the input which is needed to get on these cars around the stage. Just blipping the throttle here and there. You can see he's a little bit more on top of the car, transitioning nicely there from the left to the right-handed hairpin. And again sideways around the left-hander. And now the cars are starting to appear out onto the circuit. So car 1 against Straker and Simon May. The first to head down the straight in the wrong direction, then into the pit lane. Of course, no pit lane speed limit for the rally. But on this very first stage, the drivers will be very much be feeling for what the grip levels are, how slippery it is. Down towards a hairpin. In the past running of the event, this has caught a number of drivers out. You can see it needs a little bit of handbrake there. Very nicely done by Straker on the first run through. Nigel Mummery and Fiona Scarrett now onto the circuit as well. This was the last of the Ford Focus World Rally cars to feature fully active transmission. All 3 differentials were active. Very, very technical. Changed the rules in the WRC to try and reduce the cost of these cars. They take a number of technicians to run them as well. Very, very complicated machines. And this is actually where Nigel Mummery had a problem. The summer stages, he ran a little bit wide and clipped the barriers, and he did the same on the first run here at the winter stages. Broke the steering in the summer, but managed to get away with that. But the car still not sounding quite right. Back on board with Paul King and Alicia Miles. Now King decides really to drive the hairpin there. You can see the difference in whether you use the handbrake and pitch the car in or just steer it around the hairpin. Car number 5, Adrian Brown and Chris Jarman. The older spec Escort, the Mark I Won't be fooled. This one again has a 6-speed sequential gearbox in it. Incredible technology in these cars now. They can cost anything from 40 to 100,000 pounds. Just a bit of understeer down on the rally stage. Very, very slippery indeed. Tough to get the car to turn. You've got to be really confident if you want to push on in those slippery conditions. This is Tony Clements, car number 6, his co-driver Mark Andrews. Tony, in fact, was the clerk of the course for this event for the last 3 runnings of it, 2 winter stages and a summer stages. Tony deciding that he wanted to get back behind the wheel, bought himself this Evo 9 Mitsubishi, full group end spec. You can hear the anti-lag again there, the popping and the banging. Alan Thompson and Neil Harrison in the Ford Fiesta. Now, if you listen to the co-driver, you'll hear it's not full pace notes like you get on a multi-venue rally with a recce. It's a map, which basically Neil is describing to Alan roughly where the stage is going to go next.
Left, an open hairpin left at the bottom, really, really very slippy.
And emphasising just how slippery it is. And watch this on board and you can see there is just 0 grip.
And then left. And then long right to open hairpin left.
Dean Thomas and Mark Burke, car number 8, the Davrian Davtech Mark 8. This is one of 20 with the engine fitted across the rear. Had the car for 2 years and has rebuilt it, everything from a bare tub up. Just starting to get on top of it. Their previous car, they were a championship winner in the southeast, but it was banned when the rule changes to the MSA as to what cars were allowed to compete came in. So moved on to the Davrian, and Dean feeling his way in these slippery conditions again on the early stages. All the drivers hoping that no more rain would come. Very low temperatures, extremely unlikely to dry out anyway. Alan Thistlethwaite and Mick Klein in another Ford Escort. And a spin for them down at the hairpin. Quick nip on the handbrake to spin the car back round. And away again. Very nicely built example. Vents on the bonnet there just to get some cold air into the engine, give you a little bit more power. Car number 10 is Paul Diamond and Steve Cox. Another Mark II Escort with another sequential gearbox in it. The first of our front-wheel drive cars then at car 11, Royston Carey and Bridge Carey in the Renault Clio 172. Royston's been using a Renault Clio for a long time. He was an overall champion of the southeastern area of rallying 2 years in a row, and has also won his class at national level on tarmac as well. So let's have a few words with some of the drivers about the conditions on the early stages.
Made sure we kept it tidy, didn't do any silly mistakes, and we had a clean run, but it was very slippy and very sideways.
I'm afraid we've got a real problem with the car. We'll have to have a look. If we can't fix it, I might pull out, but it's not running right. Yeah, I think we've got a sensor wrong.
Did you have a good run?
Very good run. I think R3 must have had a problem because we caught him on the stage, but yeah, it's very, very slippery out there.
That was the most slippery stage I've ever been on. Horrific.
Good morning, how was that?
Very slippery. We had a half spin on Druids all across the mud and whatever, but no, it was all right. Locking up at the front, a bit more brake bias, we'll be all right.
All the drivers then emphasising just how slippery the morning stages were. Car number 17 is the Mitsubishi Lancer of Nigel Killaby and Amy Nash. Nigel owning Avo suspension, and this was a bit of a moment for the lovely Cossack-coloured Mark II Escort car 15 of James Slaughter and Phil Peake getting it wrong at one of these chicanes. Single venue rallies, you do often see the cars running together. They do 2 or 3 laps of the middle part of the stage before splitting off for the finish. This was the hairpin that caught a few out, the lovely Peugeot 306 Maxi there. Famous, of course, from its days being driven by Francois Delacour and Gilles Panizzi in the World Rally Championship. Very, very slippery. In the morning, the hairpin was downhill, which actually helps. In the afternoon, it's uphill, and you really have to carry the momentum in to manage to spin the car around it. Tony Clements on the exit there of Druids. Very rarely will you see a car coming sideways the wrong way round Druids. On board then here with a car which was exceptionally tricky in these conditions. Breaking away from Andrew Beverley, co-driver Wyn Thomas. But it's the extremely unusual Ferrari 308 GTB Michelotto. Only 10 of these cars made by Michelotto for Ferrari. Very, very rare indeed, and quite brave, I think, to be using it on a single venue rally. Problems continued down at the hairpin, just couldn't get the car spun around. So you either need a decent bit of steering lock around there or a handbrake just to spin the rear end round. But a few settings changes possibly for the Ferrari to give it a little bit more grip. Car 5 unfortunately retiring with an oil pump problem. 34 managed to continue, had an off at Graham Hill Bend. That was what inflicted that damage to the side of the car. And there's the lovely Group 4 Renault 581 car. This was Vince Bristow. He uses this car for rallycross as well as for rallying. Watch how slippery it is down here as well at Graham Hill Bend. You can see squirming around on the exit and then coming in, the Fiesta on the brakes there, very, very sideways as well. This is Mick Johnson and Jill Norton, car 48. They're actually the event sponsors. MGJ Engineering, of course, these sponsors crucial for small club events to be able to run. So the club, very grateful to them for the funding, which allows everybody to come and have a spot of fun in January at Brands Hatch. Vince Bristow again, nice and sideways there in the BMW. Around Druids the wrong way, tumbling down towards Paddock Hill Bend. Another sponsor of events in the southeast there, Harry Sherrard. And this is Chris Harris and Dan Prosser, two very well-known motoring journalists who actually damaged the car by reversing it into somebody else's before the rally even started. Joe Keane, second ever event, locked up his wheels here.
Off the brakes.
And just nudges the tyres. So this was how they stood after the first two stages. Paul King and Alicia Miles were the ones to get to grips with the slippery conditions first of all in their Mark II Escort, and they lead the event by quite a healthy margin. Join us after the break. We'll be back with more action.